Joining me now on the show, Robert O'Brien, former national security advisor in the Trump administration, my dear friend. Robert, I guess I'd like to talk about Ukraine. I also want to talk about China, but my mind is blown about Iran, this Iran story. There's a Russian nuclear construction carve-out for $10 billion. There's $11 billion for hostages. We're going to wind up giving more money to Iran than the Ukraine. Iran is our mortal enemy. They're Israel's mortal enemy. The Saudis hate them. They're one of the worst terrorist nations. What are we doing here, Robert O'Brien? How is this remotely possible? And by the by, why would we be giving Putin, Russia, construction company, a carve-out in the middle of all the sanctions to build another nuclear site in Iran? Would you help me through this?
No, look, it's inexplicable, Larry, and what a rough St. Patrick's Day. I was going to say happy St. Patrick's Day, but there's not a lot of good news coming out of the Middle East, coming out of Asia, coming out of Europe right now, and our hearts just go out to those poor kids and families that were killed in the theater in Mariupol. But going back to this Iran deal, you know, it's not just it's a bad deal. We outsourced the negotiations to the Russians. The Russian ambassador, in the midst of the invasion of Ukraine, was negotiating on behalf of the United States with the Iranians, and then he went on TV and crowed about it and said the Iranians got a much better deal than they ever imagined they'd receive, and I'm responsible for getting it for them. I mean, it's hard to believe what we're seeing.
But they seem bound and determined, Robert, the Bidens, to go through with this. And I don't know all the facts. I don't know all the documents. The Washington Free Beacon is a good, clever newspaper. They seem to have gotten documents. Why would we carve out, in the middle of all these sanctions on Ukraine, why would we give anything to a Russian company? Why would we give anything to Iran, which is a terrorist state and hates the United States and hates Israel and hates Saudi Arabia today? In other words, your old national security hand. Where's the logic here?
Well, what's amazing is that let's just assume for a moment that it is a civilian nuclear plant. It doesn't have nefarious purposes, which I don't believe for a second.
Yeah.
But let's assume it did. We're letting the Russians build a green energy nuclear plant for the Iranians so that we can in turn buy their oil. We're not building nuclear plants here. We're not pumping our own oil here, but we're helping the Iranians get green energy so we can buy their fossil fuels. I mean, it's the whole thing is absurd. And look, can you imagine what kind of cut Vladimir Putin is getting from that $10 billion? Because he gets a cut of everything that his companies make. So he's going to personally, again, just like he's personally made a bunch of money on this war because the price of gas has gone up and the price of a barrel of oil has gone up far more than the penalty of the sanctions. So he's making money every day. He's not going to make money on this nuclear deal. It's just absurd.
That's a great point. That's a great point. He's going to make even more money. Robert, let me shift over now. Biden is speaking to Xi tomorrow, I guess. But the mystery of it is Jake Sullivan, his national security advisor, had a 7-hour meeting with the Chinese, I don't know, last week or last weekend or something. And there's not a word about that meeting. What was accomplished, what was not accomplished. 7 hours, nothing, blank slate. And meanwhile, the reports are the Russian troops, I mean, the Red Army is pathetic, and the Russian troops are running out of military supplies, food and whatnot, and they're going to ask China, or have asked China, to resupply them. So Sullivan says if China does that, they're going to pay severe consequences. But nothing is outlined, nothing is specific, and now Biden will speak to Xi tomorrow. What do you make of this? What are we going to do with China? What are we asking them? What are these severe consequences?
Well, the last time Jake got together with his Chinese counterpart, my former counterpart, Wang Zhenxi, is they spent probably 7 hours haranguing the U.S. on our terrible human rights record. You'll remember that in Alaska when Secretary Blinken and National Security Advisor Sullivan had to sit through a monologue about how terrible the U.S. was from the Chinese. So hopefully they just spent 7 hours telling us how bad we were, and we didn't do a deal, because the deals we've been doing lately haven't been great. What I hope Jake told the Chinese is, look how bad it's going for the Russians. If you think that's bad, it'll be worse for you in Taiwan if you try and do something, because unlike in Russia and Ukraine, we are getting involved if we need to in Taiwan. And you'll not just be facing a bunch of angry Taiwanese who don't want their democracy taken away by the Communist Party of China. You'll be facing the United States Navy and Marine Corps. And it's, if you think this is bad, it's going to be far worse across the straits of Taiwan. So I hope that's a message that was sent, a very stern, strong message to deter the Chinese, because right now Xi Jinping is watching what's happening in Ukraine, and he's seen half-measure sanctions. He's seen the Russians. He's seen us turn to the Russians in Iran, allowing the Russians to build things in Iran, not sanctioning Russian oil. And I hope he's not taking away from that the West response to an invasion of Taiwan, which is critical to our geopolitical standing in the world, would be met with similar fecklessness. We've got to up our game in Ukraine, in large part to send a message to Beijing that this isn't going to stand in Taiwan.
But Robert O'Brien, do you honestly think that the Biden administration has the cojones to actually say to the Chinese that we'll put the Navy and the Marines in to defend Taiwan? I mean, it took them months and months to classify Putin as a war criminal. It actually took them months and months to do anything in the Ukraine, you know. And every time Putin barks, Biden hides under the desk instead of coming back, you know, like a Reagan would have come slamming right back. We win, you lose kind of thing, tear down that wall, etc. They say nothing. They still, you think they would, that's the message then, that we're going to send, that the Bidens are going to send to the Chinese? Get ready for our Marines and our Navy and our sanctions.
Well, the one thing Biden did say twice is that we would defend Taiwan if it was invaded. The White House ran to walk those statements back, but I hope the president was speaking for himself and he meant what he said, and notwithstanding the White House walkbacks. And look, Jake's a smart guy, and he knows that peace for strength works. It's a little hard, I think, for Blinken and Austin and Sullivan, who are pretty moderate Democrats, but they're surrounded by the squad and all the lefties in their party. But I think he's smart enough to know that the way to deal with the Chinese is from a position of strength. At least I hope so, and I hope that's a message that was sent in Rome when they met.
You know, Biden thinks he's FDR, but what we really need here is Harry Truman, who was a tough guy. Remember Truman? Yeah. With Korea, with the Berlin airlift, with a whole lot of other things, with NATO. We need Harry Truman, and we also need Ronald Reagan. I mean, do you think the Chinese right now are supplying Russia with these supplies that are short? I mean, there's a standoff. Russia's not done it in the Ukraine, right? So they're running out. Their economy is terrible. Their stock market's closed. Their currency is gone. They're defaulting on their bonds. It's a puny economy to begin with. I mean, they're running out of stuff. You think China is already resupplying? I mean, what would you advocate if you were National Security Advisor?
Yeah, they probably are, because remember when Putin went to Xi to get permission to invade Ukraine during the Olympics, shortly thereafter, Xi came out and said this is an unlimited partnership. We're there for each other for everything. So if you've got an unlimited partnership, I assume that would apply to military gear as well. We ought to be keeping an eye on that and let the Chinese know that if we see any military gear go, that the secondary sanctions will apply to China. But in the meantime, what we have to do with Ukraine is we've got to put full sanctions on. We've got to sanction the sale of oil. The SWIFT sanctions were a half measure. They don't cover oil and gas sales. The sanction of the central bank, which you advocated for, I think, first of any major figure in the media, Larry, and you were 100% right a month ago when you started advocating for this, that those central bank sanctions exclude oil and gas sales and mineral sales. So we've got to cut that off right now. The Ukrainians don't have a lot of time. You know, we're playing catch up on these. We didn't deter Putin with our sanctions. We're not punishing Putin with our current sanctions. We've got to punish him. We've got to make him, pay. And then we've got to get those Polish MiGs over to the Ukrainians so they can fly. Their pilots can have their own no-fly zone. We don't need American pilots or American soldiers to enforce a no-fly zone. Let the Ukrainians have the equipment. Let us be the arsenal of democracy so they can have the equipment to defend themselves. And when the Russians say that's a red line, I'm old enough to remember Russian MiGs that were flying over North Vietnam and shooting down American planes, and they did the same thing in Korea. So the Russians don't have a very good history on this. So, sell the planes back to the Ukrainians, use a Russian arms dealer, and then Putin can get his cut of the sales price. So maybe he'll be happy about that and get the planes down to Ukraine. The
only oil and gas sanctions are the sanctions that Biden has put on the American oil and gas industry. And that's why we're 2 million barrels a day short. And that's one reason why the price of oil is $100 and the price of gasoline is $5. That's the only sanctions I've seen anyway. Robert O'Brien.
Yeah. We've been tougher on Midland than we have been on Moscow,
That's
unfortunately.
Right. That's exactly right. Rick Perry wants a special envoy to Midland. Robert O'Brien, thank you, sir. We appreciate your contribution as always.